Hi, in this video, we're going to go back and do an introduction to a lot of terminology, the statistical process, and context. So I hope you really enjoyed the video with introducing a statistical test. And now we're going to go, into more of the vocabulary and introduction. So I have a lot of text on these notes, more than usual, but it's to save you from writing all this stuff. So I will underline, highlight, and write some more things as we go. But it's all recorded here for you. So first question is, what is or what are statistics? So statistics can mean two different things depending on the context, right? If you're talking about statistics as a class or statistics as a field, the field of statistics is the science of collecting, summarizing, and drawing conclusions from data. Okay, so we are studying this whole field of statistics. But if you're talking about a statistic, just one or a few, a statistic is a number calculated from data. And more than just that, often you'll see it as just a number, but it's really important to include the units and the context, right? We can't interpret a number by itself without having the units, which is like inches or feet, and the whole context from which it was gathered. Okay. And what are data? So you might be used to hearing what is data or data is, but data is actually plural. And sometimes I'll get this wrong as well. Sometimes I'll say this data is, but data is really plural. And you could say data, either one is fine. However you say it, it's really a plural term, and datum, although you rarely hear that, is one piece of data, one single data point. So data are any collection of numbers, characters, words, images, or other items that give us information. So it can be anything. It can be a picture, it can be a number, anything that we might collect or gather, any piece of information, along with the lens through which they were gathered. This is really important because a lot of us were taught that data are neutral and they're objective, and data are used to prove things. But that's not actually the case. And this might be behind my video, so I'm going to move it down. This quote, I love this quote, data is never, should be data are, right? Are never a raw, truthful input, and it is never neutral. And this is by one of the authors of Data Feminism. Data are always gathered within a system, within a context, within a culture. And that is part of the data. So I do want to reinforce that throughout this course. So I'm just going to underline that along with the lens through which they were gathered. And so more along these lines, context, and there's this field called data justice, or subfield of statistics called data justice. So traditionally, data has been treated as neutral and objective, and data have even been used to reinforce stereotypes and have caused harm. That has caused harm. So data reflect and reinforce, or they often do, reflect and reinforce the lens or system through which they were gathered. So it's really, really important to recognize that. The data reflect and reinforce the lens or system, which I repeated that above, through which they were gathered. And I have more, our next video will be a video on data justice. And so there is more resources on that in D2L. Okay, so next let's talk about the whole statistical process, kind of from beginning to end. And these 2 points at the beginning are throughout the whole process. That's why I put them at the beginning. So first of all, we always want to examine impacts and implicit bias. Who is harmed and who is served by a particular study, by a particular investigation. And then we also want to center non-dominant voices and impacted communities. So if we're gathering data about someone, we need to ask them and get their input, or better than that is to center them, is to guide them to do the process. So there's a saying, nothing about us without us. and that from what I could find, I've heard the saying before, from what I could find, it was first used by the South African disability rights movement. So nothing about us without us. Okay, so we're keeping these 2 points in mind the whole time. And then there's 4 steps, but sometimes you see them as 6 steps. There's steps. They can be defined in many different ways, but I've got them as 4 here. First, we're generally interested in some kind of question about some kind of group, right? We want to know something about somebody. So the question is what we're identifying, and the target population is the who that we're interested in. Okay, then we're going to design a study and collect data, and usually that involves taking a sample, right? It's often too hard to ask everyone in the population, but it depends on the population. Then we're going to analyze data and draw inferences. Okay, we're going to learn how to do all of this, and then we will form a conclusion. But are we done there? Not really, right? We need to reflect. I should add reflect on here. Reflect on our process, what went well, what didn't go well. Review, reflect, and repeat. Okay, so it really should be an iterative process. Even if, say, we get a significant result, well, does that apply to, should we repeat it? Does it apply to more populations? So on and so forth. Okay, so then also in our class this term, we'll be studying 2 different types of statistics. The first one is called descriptive statistics. And this is what we'll do in Module 2. We're going to summarize a set of data. So this is describing the data you have. Okay, it could be a large set, a small set. It's describing data. And what does it say? And then also, we'll spend more time doing this, inferential statistics. So often when we're gathering data from a sample, we don't just care about the sample, right? We were doing this to study a population. And so we want to know, can we generalize from that sample back to the population? That's what drawing inferences means. Inferential statistics is drawing inferences. So generalizing from a sample to a population. That's one type of inference. Another is determining statistical significance. And you've already seen an example of this with the Kiki-Buba test, and that we were looking to see if there was a significant relationship between the words and the shapes. So those are 2 different types of inference. So we'll be looking at all of this during our term. And then we're not really going to cover data science in our class, but I want to give you a sense of what it is, because you might be interested in studying it. If you enjoy this and you want to go further, data science uses statistics, but it goes beyond statistics. And this Venn diagram illustrates it as well. So you can see math and statistics is over here, but it's a multidisciplinary field. So it also uses computer science, IT, and then it's applied. These are the domains or business knowledge where it's applied to. Like, is it applied to linguistics and words and shapes, or is it applied to a particular business? So data science kind of combines all of these things. So data science uses math and statistics. So we'll be looking at the math and statistics part. Of course, we'll be using computers. We'll be doing some analysis and using a lot of free applets. But we're not doing the part of like designing big databases and visualizing, huge amounts of information and things like that. That would be more data science. And data science uses coding. There's also machine learning is involved, software. So it's a multidisciplinary field, and basically to visualize and make meaning from data. So if you're interested, I do believe we'll be developing a data science class, and then if you're really into coding, in the CIS department has a data science class that does require a lot of coding, but it's a great field to get into. It's really booming right now, and we also need people with a good perspective of data justice to go into that field. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this intro video, and I'll see you in the next video.